Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the IKkO OH2. I apologize for it not having been the next day as I promised, but I encountered a little issue which I will explain next. But first of all, let me just go through the actual unboxing. So it comes in this colorful box, let's put it that way, with this slip-on sleeve. This is kind of a magnet of some sorts, okay? And then the actual box opens up. Let's see if it will do me that favor. Okay, it would be nice if it happened somehow on sometime today. Oh my god, this thing is really battling me. Okay, there, finally got it. Alright, okay, done. The IEMs themselves came over there. I got the green color, the jade green color. There's a few other colors available as well. This, then you take this out. Underneath we have this envelope which contains some paperwork, some stuff, which, you know, the usual stuff. That's it. Then inside there we had the cable, which I'll show to you in a moment. It brings this pouch, which I don't like nor dislike. It's got a nice nice fabrication, but don't really like it. It brings these two replacement filters, as you can see, oval. Okay, and then brings these tips, which, well, in my opinion, and I don't want to sound like I'm being horrible or anything, these are the most horrendous tips I have ever had the displeasure of using. The foam ones, I guess because they are round, they are barely usable. Okay, and I actually did have the OH2 first hooked up to them, but these oval ones are just beyond, well, for my ears at least. I'm sure probably some will find it okay. Like this horrible size, yeah. Like, what is it? Because you see, the funny thing is, let me just show you the earphone, and then you'll understand. Okay, so the earphone, it has the nozzle, as you can see, in that position, and you actually position the earphone like this in your ear, so the nozzle stays in a transverse kind of lying down position. These tips, for you to get the best out of them, you actually have to put them in this position. So, you know, it doesn't work, honestly. These tips, maybe for some people it will work, but for me, and I'm sure for many others, they are horrible, and I just don't understand why IKkO wanted to do oval tips. Why? I mean, why? What's the reason? I mean, I've seen it being used in some TWSs, like, for example, I'm a big fan of Earfun, and they use that system, but it seems to work well there. But these particular tips here, no. Anyway, that's the unboxing. It is always what it is. It's neither good, neither bad. The accessories package for an earphone, it costs around, I would say, $75, give or take. You can probably get it at a little bit of an extra discount now during the Black Friday sales. I guess is a fair price. It's okay. I mean, it's fine. Let me just actually show you now the earphone and talk a little bit about its construction and its fit and all of that. Okay, as for the unit itself, well, actually, let me first talk about the cable. The cable is again, it's not good, not great. It's very stiff, and that's, I mean, you can see it's not very malleable, and it just wants to stick in one position. So anyway, I did try other cables, but honestly, I actually ended up going back to the standard cable, just because I didn't feel there was any real need for an upgrade cable. The issue on these earphones for me is the tips, period. It's got an MMC6 connector. It's kind of a aluminum shell with a sandwich in between. Well, the front plate is kind of got a sandwich of an acrylic or resin. Okay, it uses an 8mm CNT driver. Fit is very nice, actually. It's very nice. The length of the nozzle, very nice. I mean, it really fits well. I'm using these BGVP tips, large size. They are round, but they seal nicely. Okay, and these tips were what actually made me change my opinion of the IKkO from being totally blah to being acceptable. Just before I continue and talk a little bit more in detail, I just want to mention that I had some channel imbalance, and it wasn't a channel imbalance, sorry, of 1 or 2 dBs. It was quite prominent, and I ended up having to kind of readjust that, and that's why you can see I've got these black vents, black tuning filters here on the actual nozzle. The end result is that when I graphed them, the right channel seemed to be the one that was in the more well closer to the original tune of the factory, at least from the box. Let me just show you here. I'll show you what I graphed afterwards. The right channel was the one that seemed to be the closest to this graph here, while the left channel, and if you can see here, it's got a 195, 90, while the left channel was 5 dBs below that, between, let's say, the lowest frequency and around 1K. The rest then was almost the same. And the end result of having to play around with these filters was that I gained a little bit on the right channel, about 2 dBs, give or take, not even, and I was able to match the left to the right, so they were about equal, and then the rest of the frequency was then kept basically the same. I'll just show you now what I actually graphed. Let me just where is it? Okay, there we go. So this is the original, okay, and that is what I was able to graph. The graph here is the pink line, and it's quite similar. I mean, there isn't that much of a huge difference to. Oops, sorry. Let me just. No, let me. There. No, sorry. I apologize, guys. There we go. Okay, so it's not being easy. Anyway, let me just try it. Okay, there we go. So focus on the pink line. Okay, as you can see, more or less the same. It's got that big mid-bass bump, then the rise. Then while the original one, it says that it starts coming down after 3K. No, I actually had a little bit of a coming down, but then had a peak again at 4, and then it's got a peak again on the original one, or the factory graph at around 9K more or less. I got that peak at around 8, so I'm guessing that will be resonant peaks. And then it's got some energy past 10K, as you can see there as well in the pink, around 13, which more or less, I mean, they say it's around 15 or 20 or something, but anyway. So the graph is similar-ish. I mean, I think the biggest difference here is that I have a peak at 4, while they say that no, at 4 it's actually coming down already, and then there's that big notch there, like I have actually. All right, so it's not that bad. All right, so like I was saying, I had to kind of do that little retune, and between what originally I was getting and then what I was finally able to get, there was a difference in the right channel, which was the good channel, let's put it that way, of about 1 dB, not even 2, 1 dB, and then on the left channel that came up about 6 dBs, and it was matched nicely, and that was it. So I was happy then. Let's talk about sound. Well, what do I have? Or well, I'm gonna first say what I have here that I used to compare with it. I used Moondrop Aria reference at this price point. HD Sound Heart Mirror, one of my favorite IEMs, and I think it made absolute sense to actually put it in this group. Next was the Fahil Hibiscus, not a very talked about IEM, and the reason why I put it here was that it when I listened the first time after I corrected it, the IKkO, when I listened to the IKkO after I corrected it, the IEM that most reminded me of this was the Hibiscus. And then when I actually compared the graphs, it made sense, and I'll actually show you the graph and you'll see what I mean. So it was actually the graph I was showing you a second ago. Alright, there we go. So the pink line is the OH2, and the red line is the Fahil Hibiscus. And if you can see, the biggest difference is that the Fahil Hibiscus has a much better transition from the mid bass into the mids. Everything is coming down nicely. You have that normal sweeping down after around 200 hertz, so you don't get much bleed. The low mids and I'm going to consider the low mids up to about 1K or relatively flat, and then it picks up from the mids. In a relatively, I mean, it's not an aggressive pinna gain. It's about maybe 10 dBs at the very most, and then it just carries on, and it kind of follows very much the OH2, the peaks, everything kind of follows. Where it's nicer than the OH2 is that because it doesn't have that excessive mid bass that you found in the OH2, which can be engaging and fun for some, and has much more sub bass. As you can see, it just makes the voices cleaner, and it's an overall nicer presentation, especially for the vocals. Okay, so that's the comparison. Well, not the comparison, but that's just a little bit of why the Hibiscus is here. It reminded me very much of the Hibiscus. Having said that, I've also got a Tanya here, and I'll get into that for a second. Well, I did all the listening with the TK2. Let me just divide this into two groups. This group, so the Hibiscus and the OH2, I'm going to call the dark group. And then the HD Sound and the Aria, I'm going to call them the bright group. And the reason is as the word says, it's very simple. You actually hear it very, very well. I'm going to show you here a graph of the heart mirror with the OH2. The heart mirror, again, that's the green line, has a very similar curve in terms of bass, mid bass, but it's a little bit flatter. You don't feel so much that bloatiness. And also because you have much more energy than up top over at around 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Ks, it just makes the whole thing just sound very open. And the heart mirror is in terms of detail is a beast, absolute beast. I personally don't find the treble to be shouty or aggressive or sibilant in any way. I actually think it's one of the one of my favorite IEMs. Period. I mean, I just, like I said, I just don't find it in any way. People usually say that the area between 6 and 10K. Let me just get back here. Is the area where you will find that tendency for sibilance to show. So 6 to 10K, and honestly, all I see is that peak there, which I didn't get it straight there on the 8K, but I didn't find that excess, that extra energy that it has in that area there between 6 and 10 to be in any way sibilant or shouty or anything of the sort. The mids are absolutely exquisite on the HD Sound, and then it's got all that air above 10K, which is it's very, very nice. In terms of mids, the HD Sound and the OH2 are very good, and that's actually, I think, the strong point of the OH2. The OH2, the mids are very, very, very good. If you listen to stuff which has got a lot of mids, a lot of vocals and so on and so forth, very good. Now the vocals will only be affected on the OH2 if it's a recording which for some reason the bass just comes up too much, and that excessive bass that you have on the OH2 can sometimes lead an excessive warmness, and it kind of almost blurs the male voices slightly. That's the HD sound. Onto the aria, and here we go. And here's the aria, and again the aria has got a curve, which is the blue line, which is very similar to the curve of the hibiscus, which is, it's got definitely way more sub bass. The mid bass is much more subdued. The transition into the mids is perfect. Mid range is top notch, nothing to be said there. It's got, again, I apologize for not having actually hit that peak there on the 8K, but it's there, trust me, it's there on the 8K. I just with rush, I by mistake actually put this graph up. It's got that little notch there between 5 and 8 when you have that peak, and then you got that energy up there at around 12, 13, which is way more noticeable than the same energy that you apparently graph wise have on the OH2. And you know, it's what can I say? The aria is a reference for a reason, and the graph shows it. It's a very nice Harman tune. I mean, there's really not much I can say about the aria that is really not known. Okay, so having said that, you know, it kind of will depend what is this type of sound, or what sort of sound are you looking for. Do you want detailed sound, very clean, one with a little bit less bass, one with a bit more bass? Then you opt for the HC sound or for the aria, period. Do you want or do you like a warmish sound, so not so much detail, you're not so much of a detail freak, treble bugs you a little bit? Then you opt for the OH2 or the hibiscus. The difference between these two is that the hibiscus is sub-bass focused. It hasn't got that big mid-bass bump, while the OH2 has got that bump, and it's noticeable. You can sense it. Any one of these earphones has got really good mid-range, so vocals are pretty good. Obviously, the better ones here, for me at least, the aria, the HC sound almost equal, and then the OH2 as well is very equal. So these three have got the best mid-range out of the bunch. In terms of treble, again, aria and HC sound have got the best treble extension, the most detail, everything. In talking about technicalities, well, soundstage in the aria is amazing. I don't feel that the soundstage, or well, soundstage on the Harman is not one of the technicalities what it's known for, but still, in my opinion, it's superior to the OH2 and to the hibiscus. In terms of imaging, they all image relatively well. I mean, there isn't really that you know, you can't really fault any one of them. I guess probably the one that would be worse would be the hibiscus. The OH2 does have better imaging than the hibiscus. There's any one of them has got good left, right, up and down, front, back abilities. I mean, you know, yes, slightly superior on those two, the aria and on the HC sound, but not bad at all on the OH2. So that's imaging, that's soundstage. Detailed retrieval, definitely the HC sound and the aria are the best for detailed retrieval, and then the OH2 comes in next. And that basically covers, in a nutshell, everything. In you know, as closing thoughts, what can I say about the OH2? It's not a bad IEM. No, it's not a bad IEM. It was a pity that I had that little issue, but I was able to sort it out and basically get what the factory, at least graph-wise, seems to publicize. I didn't find that, well, my graph was giving more energy on the higher frequencies than actually the standard graph was. So I'm guessing it was probably maybe a coupler related resonance that I was having. What I was hearing in terms of treble extension, in terms of air, so above 10k, follows more along the lines of what is there on the original standard graph. And you know, when you look at this standard graph, you kind of get an idea. Okay, it's got a kind of a Harmanish, warm Harmanish kind of you know, signature. And I'm not gonna say yes or no. It's definitely warm in the bass. I feel that I don't know, maybe just maybe it could be just driver variance, and maybe perhaps I'll just have to get another set to confirm everything. But I didn't feel it was a Harman tune in any way. Well, at least not a Harman tune as the Aria is, for example. The HE sound is a neutral bright, and actually when you compare my graph, where is it? There we go. When you compare my graph with the Hart mirror, you could kind of almost say that it's a neutral. Both of them are very neutral, and then the HC sound is bright, so it's both would say, or neutral bright, neutral IEMs. The difference being that the HC sound is brighter, and that's why then I was saying earlier, it kind of depends what sound, what is the sound that you prefer. Do you prefer a brighter sound, or do you prefer a darker sound? And that's basically it. I mean, what could be improved? Yeah, in my opinion, cable definitely. It's you know, a little bit more malleable, and maybe I just have a little bit better control in terms of how the tuning of the mid bass is done. So just lower it slightly. That's what I think would be the ideal to actually get it going. And overall, I mean, the reality is this: the OH2 is in a price range which is extremely competitive. And you know, when you have something like the Aria priced the same thing as the OH2, you have your work cut out for you. And I think that's where some manufacturers are not really paying the needed attention. They're just churning out IEMs for the sake of making money, and not really paying attention to what the competition is putting out, and then trying to make something which is as good, or maybe even perhaps better. And that then would make sense, and that then will then dictate their success in terms of being able to sell. So ultimately what I am just saying is, when you have something like the Aria at the same price, it's a no-brainer. Honestly, it's a no-brainer. Aria, any day. It's a superior IEM in every aspect. Built, accessories, sound, everything, superior IEM. Then you have to still deal with the outliers, stuff like the HC Sound Heart Mirror, which has no right to sound the way that it sounds. It has no right to be as good as it is. It's got a fantastic construction. It brings a very good package of accessories, and it costs $45, $50, so it's even cheaper. So that's another nail in the coffin, let's put it that way. And then the hibiscus, I mean, it's like I said, the hibiscus, it's kind of a forgotten IEM, $45. It's very similar overall to the IKkO, like I mentioned earlier. It's just got a more sub-bass focus instead of a mid-bass focus. And finally, and not least, the reason why I've actually included the Tanya here is that, and this is going to be a hard one for some people to swallow, but this little thing here that costs $20 is better than the IKkO. Period. Yes, it might have a little bit of that mid-bass bump as well, but this thing is really good, and it deserves all the hype that it gets. It is a fantastic little IEM, and really its only, for me, its only downfall is that it doesn't have a detachable cable. If this thing had a detachable cable, no brainer of which IEM I would choose. Anyway, guys, that's been my take on the IKkO OH2. It's been my first IKkO actually, and I hadn't yet reviewed any products from them. And the experience overall was okay, it was acceptable. Alright, thank you, take care, bye bye.